Good evening, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and joining me as every Thursday, we have my good buddy Digger Jim. Jim, what's going on with you tonight, sir?
Man, I am ready for the weekend to
Me
start.
too. This is my weekend off. I got a couple great weeks lined up. I got Phil and Patrick tonight. I have Jeff Isherwood coming on the channel February 1st. I got some good stuff.
Right on.
And but yeah, good to have you. Good to see you, man. It's been a busy week for me. I don't know about you.
Man, it has been. It has been.
Especially when the cold stretch hit us this week, and I'm like, oh,
right.
I forgot that I grew up in -0 weather, and I haven't really had to experience it for a while.
Well,
like, oh, okay.
I've never, and I'm over here just freaking out that is my car going to start? Does that thing say 6 degrees? Where the hell am I?
Well,
I'm not used
my sister who lives in Georgia now sent me a text, right? It said they had a winter storm warning, excessive snowfall, accumulation up to 1 inch, and she was laughing. I'm like, up to 1 inch? I'm like, I had to walk through 1 inch just to get to the car to brush it off to go to work.
Well, Jim, I give you credit though for acknowledging that 6 degrees is cold. I know that Joe from Anachronic sent a message to our group, one of the groups that we're in, earlier this week, saying, "Oh my God, it's freezing down here in Florida. It's 70." So I just replied with just a picture of like New York style pizza and chicken parm, things you cannot get down there.
No.
That's how I fight back, people.
Right. And of course, you hear him talking. Our guest of honor tonight, sharing the guest honors with Legacy Comics founder and publisher. We have Philtastic Comics. Phil, how you doing tonight, sir? And we have Patrick. Patrick, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for you guys coming on. So as soon as Phil was putting out something, I knew I had to get behind it, and I knew I had to support it. And Phil said that you might be interested in coming on. I said that would be incredible. I would absolutely love it. But we're gonna give the quick 2 minutes, Phil. We're gonna make you big. And
big enough. Come on.
Right, and you know what to do, man. Who are you, and where can people find you, and what is your channel about?
My channel is Philtastic Comics and Art. Admittedly, it's been less and less comics lately. Just, hey, look, money's tight. I have 2 kids. But honestly, it's just a fun place. I like to think of it as a positive place where we could just discuss comics, art, and really anything and everything in between. I'm here on the YouTube machine when I can be. And I am laughing at a lot of the Instagram posts, even though I might not be able to respond to them very quickly.
And on the road to 1K.
Yes, it's a very slow build, a lot slower than I expected, but inch by inch, yeah. We have thank you for reminding me that we have a road to 1K giveaway where when we hit 1,000, somebody's going to get a big box of comics that I just keep adding to, and T-shirts and whatnot.
Nice. And then, of course, we have Patrick, his first time on the channel. So thank you for coming on, Patrick. Give a little history of who you are, what you're known for, and about Legacy Comics. Give us the scoop.
Sure. So my name is Patrick Hickey Jr. I am the editor-in-chief and owner of Legacy Comics. I am also the head of the journalism program at Kingsborough Community College. I'm a former NBC editor. I am a senior writer at Old School Gamer magazine. I've written 7 books on video game history. I am a voice actor. You may know me from Five Nights at Freddy's, Into the Pit, WrestleQuest, The Padre, BPM Boy, World Championship Boxing Manager 2. I'm a super geek. I've also written over the past 3 years, at least 35 single issues. I'm the creator of such series as Condrey, Brooklyn Bleeds, Dem Goals, Midland Beach Turkey Ninjas, The Job, love comics. I also letter most of my books. Love comics, love pop culture. That's me.
Nice.
Legacycomics.com, comics with an X.
Nice.
He just doesn't sleep.
No.
Right, and we will get that website too. But awesome. So just gonna say a quick hello to Las Cruces. Travis, how you doing tonight, sir?
TM.
Yeah, and Brad Walbor, how you doing? Now people are getting their notifications, and we're not going to interrupt you guys as they're popping in. I'll just give them a quick tip of the hat, as I always do. People start joining, but we're gonna get right into it. So I'm not sure with two what the best format is going to be for this, because I want you guys to be able to talk.
Probably that
we'll do
right
that.
there.
We'll do the 4. So let's start out with something basic so people can get to know you guys. All right. So what brought you two together? Like, what was the genesis of you two coming together and meeting? Were you guys friends before? Did you happenstance meet? Give us that story.
Yeah, honestly, it's all through the magic of YouTube. Pat one day, I think it was just through Instagram, just slid into my DMs like Drake, and you know, I mean, like I think you guys and a lot of people watching have YouTube channels. You know that you do get people, hey, you want to read my stuff? You want to read my stuff? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I think he was, if not I do think he was the first independent publisher to reach out. And Pat was just such a joy to have on the show. He's a guy who, in all honesty, don't get teary-eyed yet. in all honesty, just really puts his passion into his work. You know, one thing that immediately impressed me is how many times have you gone out and you've seen a movie and just been like, somebody really made this? And he's like, really, like, what was the thought behind this? Pat's making good quality stuff and just doing that on his own. You know, there's no, gee, you know, if I could do it my way, I could do it the way. No, he's got a pathway to do this on his own and juggle his teaching career, voiceover, writing, being a father. I honestly don't know how he does it, but he does it, and he does it well.
Nice.
So it was just a passion for Condrey, which great project, and I think one that's very unique. And I started getting into more and more of Legacy's titles, and we talked more, and it became good friends.
Absolutely.
Nice.
I've been on so many podcasts because I mean, I started writing video game history books probably like 8 years ago. So I've been, you know, on the speaking tour. You know, I've spoken at PAX East and PAX West. I've spoken all over the place, and I've gone on so many podcasts, and so many times the podcaster knows zero about you. They like didn't even try, and then like the interview questions are awful. And I was on Phil's podcast, and I was just like, he's good. He's a good podcaster. He did his research. He knew his stuff. And then, yeah, he did a ton of research. And then what ended up happening was we started commenting back and forth on each other's photos on Instagram. And then it was like Italian awareness or Italian history month or whatever. And he starts drawing these black and whites. And I'm like, homeboy can draw. I'm like, he can draw. And then I said to him, I'm like, you didn't tell me that you could draw, which is great too, because that's the thing. I've been on so many podcasts where right after the show is over, the person's like, I got a pitch for you. And it's like, they're more interested in pitching me than being a podcaster. And the thing is, like, I have never felt pressured by Phil at all. Like, Phil puts the passion of his podcast in front of everything. So then seeing all these pictures from him, and then he drew a Chris Claremont homage for me of me holding up a copy of Condrey. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to have to do business together. And then it was just trying to find the right thing for him. And he ended up doing some covers for us, and those came out great. But I was really the most interested in Phil's black and whites, because Phil's black and white work is excellent. So I'm just like, let's do an Ash Can in black and white.
And I'm a huge fan of black and white art because, you know, I'm a Savage Sword baby. So like, always had an appreciation for it. And it's nice that he sends you good messages, because he always sends me messages, but it's like, why do you suck, Gary? And then well, Phil, why do you hate me?
It's balance. It's balance.
No, Phil is one of the nicest people out there for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you don't get along with Phil, you're actively trying not to get along.
Right.
I'll say this.
Absolutely, I
will
agree.
say this, Gary. Last time I was in the hot seat, I may have said a couple things when we started the show that I know offended a couple people. And if you don't remember what it was, you should just go back and watch that. So sorry about that. You don't understand that the pressure of being in the hot seat.
Yeah.
You know, it gets to you.
Yeah. There's no pressure on this show.
No joke.
Okay, so
That's
well,
awesome.
let's get right to it. I mean, obviously, there's a huge. I was looking through the library on Legacy Comics, and there is a lot. But we'll let Patrick talk about that. But first of all, let's just talk about Condrey itself. So the Condrey that you're doing, Phil, if I understand right, that's going to be a one shot, right?
Yes, it's.
But
Go ahead.
what is Condrey at its core? I know that you've done other covers. Your GTA cover was great for it. But we'll let you, Patrick. We'll give you the big stage for a second. We'll let you explain the Condrey universe to the public.
Sure. So Condrey started as it was the first comic book I ever wrote. I wrote it when I was 18, and then I kind of shelved it to become a college professor, become a journalist, and every like 2 or 3 years I would just come back to it just because I really believed in the story, in the script. And then around 2019, I found Kieran Quinn, and we ended up doing issues 0 through 5 together. There's like 4 spin-offs in the series, and the newest one is obviously going to be with Phil. At its core, Condrey is about a New York City homeless man who's trying to find out who killed his father. But it's so much more than that. There's elements of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. There's elements of Tarzan. There's elements of early Spawn. There's elements of early Highlander in there. There's a whole bunch of really great 80s and 90s pop culture stuff. I was a literature professor for 16 years. I just teach journalism now. I love The Count of Monte Cristo. So there's a lot of that in there. So there's a really rich, deep narrative, but at its heart, it's hard-boiled noir. He's an ass kicker, and he's trying to find out who ruined his life. And there's this really fun backstory, and that's kind of it at its core. And then there's 2 other series of ours that are interconnected to it that create the Condreyverse.
Now, where did the name Condrey come from? Because that's not a common name, so it feels like you have a history with it, or is it just something that caught your eye? Tell us a little bit about the name itself.
It's a funny story. So I remember I'm a huge gamer. I own over 5,000 video games, and I love sports video games. And sometimes I would love to play seasons with bad teams, just because it would be fun. To get 115 wins with the San Diego Padres in 2004 or 2005 or whatever, And there was a guy on, I'm pretty sure it was the Padres, called Clay Condrey. He was a middle reliever, and I just loved the last name. I thought the last name was really good. And then I have a twin brother, and his name is Billy, William, and he's like Kramer from Seinfeld, my twin brother. He's like a maniac. He's a complete lunatic. So I'm just William Condrey, and I was just that's it. That's my character's name right there, So just Condrey's a cool, different last name, and
it sticks out, it catches your eye because it's
unusual. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's kind of where the name came from.
Nice. That's a good story about it. Now,
that is a good story.
Now you and Phil met up through IG and YouTube, but his first work was obviously covers for you. So you reached out to him just based on his artwork on his IG and what he was sharing on YouTube. You're like, I just need a cover from this guy.
Yeah. So the first thing was I wanted to do kind of a mini collection of 3 Job Ashcan. So the Job is another series that we have, and it's about a pro wrestler that loses every match. But he's got a hot wife and a hot car, and short story is they rob banks together. It's a ton of fun. So it's half Mickey Rourke's The Wrestler, half Dog Day Afternoon, and Point Break. It's just a lot of fun.
Nice.
And I wanted Phil to do a cover for that book, and then Phil reached out to the Comics Curing Cancer people, so we did that with them, and that came out really good. And I put Phil through the ringer on purpose, because it was wanted to test him, wanted to see how well he handled himself, and he handled himself beautifully. And then he did another cover for Condrey 4, a digital exclusive cover, and that came out it's hard to ever say anything is perfect, but that's as perfect a variant cover that you could get on a book. So it was just I'm what? First, we're gonna put him on cover, see how he does, and then after that, you would naturally graduate to sequentials. And So I was just like, "You want to do a Condrey?" And he was just like, "Yeah, okay." So then we just took it from there. He totally proved himself, and he's
Well,
read all of my
let's show
stuff.
that cover. So you
Yeah.
can we'll show it.
Yeah.
So we got Condrey 4, and this is
Mhm.
Phil's cover here.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's badass. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's
And
some
again,
crazy
yeah,
detail.
just great black and white
Phil.
work.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like a big fan of Frank Miller, so it's like that just totally to me like screams like, you know, that has like a Sin City kind of vibe to it, but so much more than that, you know, like it's just so cool. The eyes have a soul, you know, his nose looks very like Owen Wilson-y, like broken in like 5 places. Like I love it. There's just
Yeah, like
something
he's
really
been
cool
in a
about
few
it.
fights. He's
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
a few matches.
Seen a few things, right? Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Well, look, if you
Yeah.
if you have read any Condrey, or if you're expecting to read any Condrey yet, from what I've read at least, you know that he's not a, you know, he's not a guy who takes things lightly. We'll say he's a knockaround guy.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to go to, because this makes a lot more sense now after meeting you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to find the GTA 5 cover here. What issue was that?
Oh well,
That's-
that's the Job Dark Matches. That's the name of the book.
Oh, the job.
Yeah,
All right,
it's
that's
The
why I
Job.
can't find it.
Yeah. Mhm.
Here you go.
Yeah. So can we still get that if we wanted to?
Oh yeah.
Sure. I'm pretty sure we have to go to the printer. We only have like 3 or 4 copies of that left in stock, but like we would have to order from the printer, so it'd be a little bit longer. But yeah, those are totally available still, physical and physical and digital. Absolutely.
Now,
So that's
Phil, I want to ask you, because obviously I get why it's a GTA reference with him being a big guy in the games. Was it a challenge for you, or was it easier for you to do this cover because you had a template kind of to look at from the Grand Theft Auto art?
Well, for me, it was a challenge because even though, hey, there's a template, here's the thing. I'm not huge on quote unquote homage covers.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be like, hey, it's the same guy in the same pose, like I just drew over it. You know, to me, if you can catch the vibe and the energy of both, in this case, the book and the game, then it's a no-brainer. I just do want to add, and you're probably going to get this, but I'll beat you to it. And this is, I was overjoyed when Pat agreed to this. Whenever somebody buys this and that Condrey digital variant that you just saw, a donation goes towards Comics Curing Cancer, and that's ongoing. That didn't stop last year. So, hey, you know, look, even if you don't read the book, which you should, because it's a good book with an awesome. How come Tarantino hasn't had this idea yet? And Pat Hickey Jr. had this idea. It sounds like something that would be at least a vignette in a Tarantino movie. But anytime you buy this, a little bit goes towards curing cancer, and I think that makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
Well, here, let's make you big, and you can show off your cover yourself there instead of me showing it on there. You know, have your moment because you deserve it.
Well, thank you. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. And I've said this on the live show too. So if there are people who have this already and want like me to sign or remark, I've never done a remark. If they just make an extra donation on their own to Comics Curing Cancer and send it to me, I'll send something back to them. I don't want to sound a certain way, but yeah, I'll sign my name. But yeah, I'll sign it. I'll do a little picture, whatever you want on it. You know, just as long as you make that extra donation.
Man, that face in the top center. Oh,
I'll say this.
Amazing.
There's certain squares that I did not work on. You know, Pat put some prior work in there too, just as a way to kind of tie everything together. This one I didn't do.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that's Valentin Quinones. The one
Yeah.
that the face you're replying to, that's
Yeah.
Valentin Quinones, and then the one in the lower middle, that's Steve Condrey, and then the woman to the right of the B, that's Valentin Quinones too. Everything else is pretty much is Phil. So
Yeah.
this was a really hard cover. Like this went through several revisions and stuff like that, and
It's
Phil
so spot
crushed
on, though.
yeah, he crushed
yeah, it
it.
really
And then
is.
as an editor, like it's my job to elevate and to make it better. So it's just like if you guys saw the original cover, you would be like, okay, we see where this is going. This is really good. Like Phil actually drew the job logo and stuff. And he did a great job. But then I was just like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. That font is a commercial font. We're gonna buy it, and I'm gonna play with it, and we're gonna make it like look a little bit tighter and stuff. And then I had another artist come in and kind of tighten up some of his colors, and then he went back in and tightened up some of his stuff. So it was just like I said, I really put him through the ringer on this, as opposed to the Condrey cover. The Condrey cover, it was like one draft, and he's just like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "It's done." You know,
Yeah.
We're there.
I mean, the end result is totally there.
Now, Phil, CJ had a question for you. Are you doing your art digitally or traditionally, or is it a mix of both?
I work both ways. That sounded wrong. I work.
That's what she said.
Thank you.
He plays both sides, traditional and digital.
Yeah. But most of this stuff I just draw on my iPad, just for the quickness of doing it, the ease of use, and just the ease of getting the work out to Pat, just to get it going.
Now, I want to ask you too, before we get more into Condrey, Phil, what was it like working with an actual deadline doing your art as opposed to just doing your art for fun?
Oh, well,
because you have 2.3 kids, and that's hard to do.
Yes, it is. They don't understand. Like, hey guys, do you want to watch Blippi? Dad has to draw, and don't look at what Dad's drawing because it'll give you nightmares.
I was nightmares. Because I can't I can't imagine writing on a deadline, or much less now you're doing art on a deadline.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, first, Pat, being a family man himself and having his arms in so many jars in different directions, knows the process and respects it. And of course, this is not my full-time job. So, he gave me a good amount of time to start with, and that was key. Second, I should mention this first, even though she's not watching right now, at least I don't think. My wife, of course, knowing the importance of, hey, I want to get this to him by this date so that if I have to do more, we can, that type of thing. Really, the biggest thing for me, I was like, somebody wants me to do sequential art. I've never done it before. I don't know how to go about doing it. I was like, okay, look, I'll give it a shot. If it sucks, whatever. It's not my... That's the thing when I was working on these things with Pat too, is that, I'm cognizant that these are not my characters. This is not my baby, so to speak, of this is Pat's baby. So if he turns around and says, hey, I want this to look a certain way.
Well, that was a question I had for Pat. So, Phil,
right.
Obviously his work before this was probably just doing one-piece panels, right? But doing one-piece panels is different from storyboarding and telling a story through art. How big a part did you play in guiding Phil through that process of having to make his art into storytelling panels?
So the fact that I letter, I think helps the artist. So he basically gets the lettering script handed to him. So he gets, like, let's just say this is an 8-page story. He gets all 8 pages and all of the dialogue and all of the monologue, all the speech bubbles like that are supposed to go on that page. And then I'm basically like, because I've done editing for other indie comic book companies. I've worked for other indie comic book companies, and I kind of see the way that they're like, panel 1, this is what goes in panel 1. Panel 2, this is what goes in panel 2. And I'm just like, if you're the artist, that is not fun. Like, that's not fun.
Yeah, so, it drowns your creativity.
Absolutely. And again, the fact that they're not your characters, you don't have an emotional connection with them. So it's just like the least that I could do is give Phil as much freedom as possible, but within the parameters of this is all the text that I need to get on the page, So as long as you hit all of those notes, I'm pretty much okay, unless the character looks completely opposite. But then this is the thing. We were lucky that Phil has read all of Condrey. So he knew what all of the characters were supposed to look like, and I gave him digital, so he had plenty of reference and stuff like that. So I think I put all of my artists in a situation where they can thrive. I give them really good deadlines. I'm not a pain in the ass. And then too, like, I write a good contract. So it's like we have Phil knew this. He read the contract. I have right to first refusal. So it's like this character is like our flagship character. So if it's just like, if it doesn't look the way that it looks, the artist knows that they're taking a risk that it may not get published, So Phil was great. Phil did a great job, and I knew he would. I knew he would, with just from his black and whites and how much respect he had for the characters. And I liked his sequentials so much that I lettered the book in one day. I sat down in one day and I lettered the entire book, and I was sending him like page by page on Instagram, like boom, 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 because it was just like I wanted to see it finished, and I wanted him to see it finished. So he graduated clearly from covers to sequentials. Like I would totally want to do another black and white book with him, to the point that maybe a color after.
Right now, Phil, how was it for you having to actually storyboard your art from just doing your challenges and just the stuff that you like to do? Did you enjoy the challenge, or was it really stressful for you, or did it help you become more creative because it was a challenge?
I mean, every emotion you could think of at once, just in the span of an hour.
Yeah, I'm sure.
One thing that, and I've kind of been candid about this recently, and this is just kind of my own mindset in all things, not just art, not just YouTube, not just work. I have a bit of, I think what people call like imposter syndrome, where I'm like, you really want to look at are you sure? Because this looks a lot better than what I could do. And
right.
A big part of it was honestly my wife being like, just pick up your balls and do it.
Oof.
She doesn't say it like that. That's my interpretation. She says it much nicer.
You've got this, honey.
Yes.
That sounds like my wife. You've got this.
Yes. But, and I kind of leaned on some resources and thought of, okay, well, what can I do where this is Pat's story, but this is my touch to it. And a lot of it was a book I brought up. I think the last time I was on your show, Gary, Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics. Because there's so many things in there that, and anybody who even wants to try sequential art, I recommend. There's so many things that it sounds simple, but you never think of. Like, look, if you go to a movie and George Clooney walks across the screen and opens up the door or whatever, that takes 2 minutes. In a comic, that could be 4 pages. So you have to make those decisions where you need to make the action flow. You need to make that connection to the character flow, and you have to make those choices, and hopefully they work out. So that was a big resource too. I could tell you that one of my biggest hurdles to start with, you mentioned my challenges, Gary. If you guys follow me, you may know that I didn't finish Battober this year because I was pretty banged up by the time October came around. I had an issue with I had a bicep tear a few years ago, and every now and then, if I don't rest my arm or whatnot, this is just a whole lot of pain. And I found myself mid-October being like, oh, this is not good. I have to stop this, but I want to finish at least Italian American stuff, and I have to finish Condrey. So that was a physical hurdle. And then just like, hey, do I have to make panels, or how can I do it? Luckily, I not to give anything away, I leaned more on a style that you'd see like in Mike Del Mundo, where maybe you don't have traditional panels, but you use other elements that make those panels for you.
Nice. And obviously I haven't seen your new book. I haven't received it yet. But different for me when people just do like a piece of art compared to panels, it's what you put in the background matters a lot of the times too.
Right.
Now, was that something 100%. Different you had to think about? And Patrick, with the same question to Phil, were you guiding him on what he needed to include in the background to make these environments what you wanted for your world?
So the first thing I think Phil would agree when I say is 90% of Legacy stuff is extremely paneled. I prefer like that 90s image style where everything is like totally open and your eyes are wandering all over the page. When I see like 7 or 8 panels on the page, I'm just like, oh, this is like so it's like 1950s comics, and it's just like I love some of those 1950s comics, but it's just like I want you to be able to read one of my books 3 or 4 times and see something different every single time. So I definitely want I want the artist to go like balls to the wall with the stuff in the background and things like that. But see, this is the thing too. I think it's fair to say there are a bunch of pages in this book where you go, this page could kind of be a cover by itself. Like Phil's drawing
Right.
sequential art, but they still have that, like his stuff still has that cover appeal. Yeah. So it's like trying to work with someone's strengths, knowing that they haven't done a lot of sequential art, but they can draw covers. So what if we do a book that's like 8 pages, 10 pages that is telling a very small part of a story, but we're able to really showcase it with really like eye-popping art. And I think that's what he did. We worked with his strengths. And we covered up like some of his weaknesses, which are obviously just starting to do sequential work, to the point where I don't even think people would think that this would be his first sequential work by looking at it. So
nice. Now, Phil, when you got this finished and you had a completed comic that you did cover to cover, interiors, the cover, everything, what was that sense of accomplishment like for you?
It didn't hit right away because I was like, I showed my wife, because I mean, Condrey in itself, Pat gave you a description. I think of it as noir, kind of Sin City, but with definitely kind of, I think more like Arthurian kind of twists into it. And, you know, it's a heavy, like the first time I read the script, it was heavy. I was like, wow, this is, you know, there. So I was a little like, do I want to show this to my wife? Do I not want to? And I was like, honey, what do you think of this? She's like, and my wife, being very supportive, is always like, this is great. She was like, you didn't do this. You did this? Yeah.
You have a dark side.
So it's like, all right, well, let's see what Pat thinks. And when Pat is an excellent cheerleader, I'll say that too. I shouldn't say cheerleader, he's a good supporter. When I got those first things of feedback, that's when it hit and was like, oh wow, okay, this is real. I did this.
And it's tough because when you're putting your stuff out there, I mean, you like to hear good things, but you also need to hear what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the only way you improve.
Yeah.
So, you know, what are you working on this? What is the part of your art that you think you improved on the most through this journey with Pat and his company?
I mean, like on a technical level, I have to say, I think just generally modeling the characters and just being more expressive, you know, because look, you know, this is an ash can size. This not this way, but you only have so much real estate in any comic to tell your story. So you can't have everybody there just, you know, you need to add that emotional oomph, because if people can't connect with what you're doing, they're not going to like it. They're not going to read it, and they're going to tune out by page 3.
Right. And I noticed too, like with some artists, they can make the character look like the character through head-on shots and certain angles, but they can't always make a character look like the character, like from a side view or looking down or looking up or away.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that something that you consider a strength of yours, or was that something that you had to work on as well to be able to capture a character's essence from all sorts of different angles?
I definitely had to work on it. You know, it was a struggle, it was a challenge, and it was something that I even like kicked around a bunch, just because I was like, oh, I'm going to do this, and I wound up kind of storyboarding like the first couple things. That was kind of key too, because I was like, hey Pat, I'm thinking about this, and I wanted to make sure that we were on the same kind of wavelength with that goes. I should have mentioned that too, just because I didn't want to hand him everything and be like, I don't like any of this. You know, so that constant communication I thought was key.
Don't you know who I am? I'm Phil Menza.
Well, I would say my name right.
He did do that to me.
Did he become a diva? You could tell us, Pat.
No.
Yeah.
No. And the thing is, real talk, like the job cover that he did, we probably went through like, I mean, in between like 8 and 12 revisions. And then the Condrey cover that you see is probably like the 5th or 6th, because it's just like, I was like, listen, the sequentials are really good, but we need to do something different with this cover. And then I'm like, I'm thinking to use the gun and blah, blah, blah. And then he did this montage, and it looks like an 80s like action film.
It
and
looks
stuff
like a
that just
movie
came out.
poster. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
Or a video game cover.
Yep.
And that's
And, you
also
know,
something I wanted to lead into for you.
Yeah.
With your company, Legacy Comics,
Mm-hmm.
how much does your video game background apply to how you create in the comic book world?
A ton, because our Kickstarter. So we had a Kickstarter in October of 2021. That's how the company was founded, and we were 300. By the end of it, we were 301% funded, and we were funded within like 3 hours.
Nice, congrats.
No one knew who the hell I was in comics at that point. I had done like Condrey 0, 1, 2, and 3, but I did it for a very small comic book imprint and stuff. And all the people that were pledging that Kickstarter were fans of my Minds Behind the Games video game books, and they were sources from my 20 years of journalism and stuff like that. And the majority of that journalism work is in the video game industry. So that's kind of like, without all of the work that I've done in the video game industry, that Kickstarter doesn't get funded. And if that Kickstarter doesn't get funded, we don't have a company, because it's like, I do well as a college professor, but I've been told by good friends of mine that you never mix good money with bad money. And it's like, I'm not in the place where I can use my full-time job to support my comic book company. If my comic book company isn't making money, if we don't have a successful business model, then we don't exist. So I've definitely been able to leverage the experiences that I've had in video games, in voiceover, in journalism, in education to benefit the company. So absolutely.
And I know I can speak this a little, but I know Phil can speak to this. Being part of this YouTube community really helps, because there's instant support from the community, which helps you succeed with whatever you're trying.
Absolutely.
People will give it a shot. They will give you your fair chance just because they know you and they care about you and they have a relationship with you.
Absolutely.
And so I'm sure with your video game backgrounds and all, you had that community just pulling for you to succeed, which always helps. We have a question here from CJ for you, Pat. He wants to know if you plan on doing any ongoing series or just one shots and mini series.
So we have, so the thing is, it's so funny that you mentioned Quentin Tarantino before. He is definitely like one of my favorite, writers and directors. And I love the fact that he can kind of take a small moment in time and just like inject it into the beginning or the end of the middle of the film. And you're just like, that could be a completely different movie. So the Ashcan Prayer for the Dying that Phil and I have done is basically, it's like a little spin off of Condrey 4 that I just felt like it's a little moment that I felt like needed to be fleshed out more. So we just released our first omnibus for Condrey. It's like 180 pages. It's like 8 issues and stuff like that. But later on, when we do another omnibus, that will be included in there. So we have full single issues. Condrey is ongoing. We're working on issue 7 now. The Job is up to issue 3. Brooklyn Bleeds, our zombie book, we've done like 7 issues of. So we have ongoing series. We have Ashcans. But the thing is too, with indie comics, if you're not what's up, Virginia? Kenneth from Virginia. If you're not selling books, then your company dies. So the thing is, it's just like, I like to use Ashcans and shorter stories to kind of like build interest. And if the Ashcan or the issue 0 sells well, then that pays for the issue 1. You have to do incredibly smart business or else you don't get to stay in business. And I feel like there's so many great comic book people out there. Thank you. Yeah. I love The Job. The Job and Condrey are my two babies. Like, and they're intertwined. They're in the same universe.
I have a love for short fiction. And I think it comes from my Robert E. Howard reading. I love the pulpy media of short form storytelling. I think it's really powerful. I think it's underrated. And I kind of don't like today that everything's this major long arc and 18 issues got to tie in together. I miss the days of one-offs and one-shots and stuff like that. And I think it's important to have one-offs. And I think it's important for a character to have single issue stories and still they can develop in those stories.
Absolutely. I love to mix in. So like right now, to answer that question, I'm sorry if I'm being long-winded, but
You're
like
good.
we have three main ongoing series, but like I do like to sprinkle in one shots and ash cans because sometimes somebody may have never read issue 3 or 4, but then they jump in and read an ash can and then they go back. So, you know, it's I just like to keep things spicy.
Now, CJ wants to know what your definition is between an ash can and a zine.
Oh my definition of an ash can is a shorter, like I think of a full comic as 17 pages or more. So
Right.
anything like shorter than that, I consider to be an ash can. But then the thing is too, an ash can is usually smaller in
Smaller.
size,
Yeah.
and I prefer to still go by the 6.875 by 10.5. So we kind of have full-sized ash cans, if that makes sense. Or I guess if you want to call
Yeah,
them a
but
zine,
it's
you can call them a zine.
right, but it's a moment in time.
Yes.
And man, see, to me, that's what I would want to read first, just to see if I get like this character is going to grip me or not, because it may not, and then I may go on to something else, like you said. But if it does, then it's like, oh, now I'm falling down the rabbit hole, and I've got to go back. And you said you have an
Absolutely.
omnibus? Ooh,
Right.
Yeah,
I
we
know
have
the
a Condrey,
omnibus piqued my interest.
We have a
too.
Condrey omnibus right now, and it's Condrey 0 through 5 and like 3 of the spin-offs. So it's like 180 pages. It's done really well for us, and that's like the first arc of the Condrey series. It's a lot of fun.
And let me add something to this too, just in case this isn't clear. If you've never read Condrey before, or if this is your return visit to Condrey, this is an excellent book regardless. It could stand on its own. But one thing that didn't really quite hit me until I was almost done with it is that this is kind of like the lightning bolt in the Condrey universe. Without the events of this book, nothing else happens.
Yeah.
all right.
And
Now,
so
man,
jump in.
come on, Phil.
Well,
You're just making me spend money, Phil.
let's get this up there and
Man,
let you guys.
I mean,
So this is the cover they were talking about, and a great cover. The outline with the
Yeah.
gun, the red pops. I mean, red on a cover sells anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I especially like the guy, and then half his face is going into a skull.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's just good. It's just good stuff. Phil, people have a lot of problem drawing digits and feet and hands. That's a great hand with the gun.
It's digits are very difficult, and I can tell you that was not the first attempt. Yeah, I've said to myself, if I ever have the time, I remember years ago watching an interview with Todd McFarlane, and he was like, yeah, if I wanted to draw feet, I would lock myself up in a trailer for an entire week and draw nothing but feet. And it's like, that's great. I could maybe last 20 minutes.
Now,
So,
how did this cover come about? Again, you guys kind of touched on it, but can we get a little bit deeper explanation with the gun and the framing? Is this all Phil's idea, or were you guided, Phil?
Definitely guided. Pat, I forgot. Forgive me if I forgot exactly what you were initially asking for the cover, but I could tell you I definitely wasn't hitting it. Just because what I tend to gravitate more towards is a little bit more. I don't want to say abstract, but in my view, there's one particular element. I'm going to speak around it because I don't want to give anything away. There's one particular element in each page that really pulls you in. And my initial idea for the cover was a big focus of this particular element. And while it artistically looks great, it may not be necessarily something that makes you want to pull it off of the rack if you see it. Mm-hmm. So I went back and forth with Pat with a couple ideas. I drew up a couple ideas. There were some things that I felt like this would be cool, but I don't know how it would look. And then I was like, you know what? Let's just go for it.
My biggest thing is whenever I do a con, I always have my books on stands, and the thing is I want people to be able to see the books as they're walking towards our booth and stuff, and it's just like the book has to be able to sell itself solely on the cover. Like, I want people to buy the book just for the cover and then to be surprised when they open it up and see the sequentials and go, all right, here we go. So the thing is, Phil's an excellent artist, but like the covers weren't like encapsulating like the work that he put into the sequentials, and it wasn't as like pulpy and things like that. And I think I threw some like Daredevil covers at you or whatever, you know, Daredevil holding a gun, or that like I said something about the gun, and you know, and I said like, you know, we need to go like more Sin City-esque, blah, blah, blah. And then he gave me that, and then we toyed around with a couple of different color outlines for the gun. We have a black one, we have a red one. He did a whole bunch of different things. So then after he gave me the white one, all I did really was like raise the contrast a little bit on the red. And then if you look really close into the cover, you see kind of like scratches. And that is a filter from another artist that I have, Chris Booth, who's amazing. He's our main Condrey artist now. He's awesome. He's done a whole bunch of books for us. He did Young Condrey, which is like one of the early prequels, which is a great book. And I'm like, okay, this book now it looks pulpy, it looks insidious, but I'm like, it needs to look beat up a little bit. So then I talked to Chris and I'm like, would you be okay with us using that, like the scuff marks that you had on? He used it on Door Slash, which is a really cool book. It's about a serial killer that uses DoorDash to kill people. It's a lot of fun. So we use that filter that well, it's not a filter, it's what he drew, but we use that layer on top of it. So with the darker red, the scuff marks on it, and then the outline of the gun, it came out really good. And then I just had to dress it, and I, conjured up the.
I mean, as someone who buys comics, what works for me for this appeals to me in two different ways. Mm-hmm. One, the contrast really makes it pop. The black and white art against the red makes it, and the outline really pops, and it makes it draws your eye. The other thing that really draws me in, being an older dude, is it looks like a pulp, like the old pulps. This looks like an old crime noir cover, like you pick up your little old paperback that you're going home to read, and you know it has a pulp feel to it, a grit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, fantastic cover, Phil, and congrats on the book, guys.
Thanks.
Now
I love how the guys are on the knuckles too. You see, like it when you put it over where the knuckles are, there are people behind it. It's just like the whole thing lines up really well.
Yeah, if you look in the back, there's those red eyes and stuff. It's just like every time you look at it, if you look closer, you see different things, and that's what I wanted. That's what I want for every page of every book that we do. And he nailed it. He crushed it.
And CJ wants to know if you're doing any cons in New York.
So I just did I signed for 2 days in New York Comic Con this past year. I just did Comics Con in Staten Island on Sunday. So my wife is going through cancer treatment. She's having surgery at the end of the month. So probably like February and March are probably like no cons. But then I'm looking forward to like getting back on the con trail in April and May and June and whatnot. I run a con in Staten Island. It's called St. Anne's Comic Con. So we will have tables. Like Legacy will be out there in full force. I do signings at collectible stores all the time. I'm always looking for places to do signings, and we ship worldwide on legacycomics.com. So it's just like, if there's any way that you guys want to get the book, all you got to do is hit up the website. And then this is the thing too. If you guys order the book today, I'll sign your copy for free. So if anyone pre-orders the book now or anything off of the Legacy site today, I'll sign it. I'll sign it for free.
Can I cash in on that?
Sexy acrylic markers.
I'm getting mine right after we get off. I got to go get my friggin' bank card.
And again, give us a quick synopsis of Condrey: A Prayer for the Dying. For those who are watching and going to catch it on the rewind, give again the quick synopsis.
So Phil nailed it, where he was like, this is kind of like, this is the moment in the series that is like the catalyst for everything that happens the rest of the story. So essentially it's like, I don't want to give anything away, but what I'm going to say is like, a man is kind of forced to come to grips that like he may not be here tomorrow. And what is the world going to look like when he's not here? Who's going to stop the things that are stopping him from being the person that he needs to be? And he's lived a life where he's like upheld honor and morality, and he's been an upstanding citizen, and that's all being taken away. And now he's like kind of like in the blink of an eye, like that last breath, thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen? So it's just it's like a small glimpse of like someone's life. Like it's like that last thing you see before you pass away. It's like your life flashes before your eyes kind of thing. That's exactly what's going on in this book. So it's a great introduction to like how Condrey becomes Condrey, but through someone else's eyes and not his own.
Now tell them, where can they find this book? And then we're going to get to a couple fun questions to end it.
Sure.
Where can they find this book? How much is it going to cost them? Because this book's actually very affordable.
Sure. Yeah. It's you can go to Legacy Comics, LEGACY Comics, COMIX.com/shop. And you just order it. It's $5. If you order it tonight, it's available for pre-order. It's coming out. We're gonna send it to the printer probably like the first week of March. So we'll be shipping it out like the first week of April. So you can go there, you pre-order it. I will sign it for free. It's $5. Shipping is $8 because Gemini bag. It's bag, boarded, Gemini box, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, shipping's ridiculous with everything these days.
Yeah. Yep. But your
It is
comic
what it
will
is.
your comic will not get messed up. I promise you. I take very good care of all of my orders. Like I've never gotten any complaints from any of my my customers and stuff. But yeah, you could just pre-order it on the website. It's also available digitally. It'll probably be available digitally in March, a little bit early. Like once we send the book to the printer, the digital will be available too. And then all the other issues of Condrey, if you like the Ashcan, are already all available. And those are shipped same day, so you can get them in 3 or 4 days.
So like real quick, because I got to know this. It says on the webpage that one Comics Curing Cancer piece is digital.
So
like the cover,
the job
variant
dark,
cover that Phil
yeah,
did.
the variant cover that he did, that's just digital. That's just a digital copy. Yeah. But then the job dark matches is physical. So Phil did one digital exclusive cover for us and then one physical cover for us before he graduated to Condrey, Prayer for the Dying.
Yeah, and look, I mean, my thing is, if you're going to go online and pre-order the book and you're going to pay that $8 for shipping, go ahead and explore the wide variety of options that Legacy offers you, including something like this that, again, helps fight cancer.
Yeah. I really like that digital one, though. Jesus, that thing.
Do both. It's okay.
But and you know, well, I have a Kindle, so it would really pop on the Kindle, the digital. Now, first of all, we're gonna get to some fun questions because I like having some fun. I hope you guys don't mind that the questions were a little bit. I don't try to ask the same questions everybody else asks because that's boring. So hopefully you guys didn't mind having to go into detail about some of the stuff I asked you guys about. Phil, when I get mine, I'm gonna send it to you and hopefully you'll sign it for me.
I'll have to charge you double.
Yeah.
Sexy double signed copy. There you go.
There you go.
But Phil knows from being on my channel and on my shows. He's been on the 1011. He's been on in the hot seat a few times in the 1011. But he knows I like to ask questions because I'm obsessed with like my dream thing would be to be drawn into a comic, in a Conan comic, sharing an ale, sharing a mead with Conan, or being killed in a comic by a character. And I usually ask if you could be killed off by anyone in any comic by any character, what comic would be your death scene, who would be drawing it, and who would be writing it, and who would be killing you. So Phil, let's start with you.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. You know what? I would say, look, you can answer something like Conan, or even if you want to go like a Punisher, who, let's face it, they kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
I would just say go the other direction. I would go Squirrel Girl.
Nice. Death by furry?
Death by squirrel. Yeah.
Writing it, let's say Zeb Wells. You know, he has a nice twist on things. Artwork, you know what? You know, because it'll be very of the time, and I don't think I've seen him draw this character. I would say go with Nakayama.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, and Patrick, same question to you, sir.
It's pretty easy. I would probably have Bullseye kill me and have Frank Miller write it and draw it, in a Daredevil comic.
And then I had an additional one for you because of your background.
Mm-hmm.
You could be killed off in any video game by any video game character. Whose game are you in, and what character is killing you off?
Oh, it's crazy. It's so funny because I'm doing voiceover for a game that's coming out in 3 weeks called Scary Stories and Short Stories in Scary Places. And I voiced 5 or 6 characters. But what they did was they took a picture of me from high school. I have really long blonde hair. And it's they put out a missing persons kind of thing. So I basically die in the game. It's pretty funny. And there's the Condrey graphic novel is actually in the game. You can actually pick it up and move.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so we got the Condrey omnibus in the video game, which is pretty cool. But I don't know if I was gonna be killed in a video game, I would probably say Five Nights at Freddy's, just because I play phone guy in the newest game, but just because the game is really freaking scary, the jump scares and stuff like that. And I just think being ripped from limb from limb. What?
Which animatronic creature would kill you?
Probably Springtrap. That one would probably work, or Bonnie. Just a lot of fun. Just to be ripped limb by limb from within by an animatronic would be a lot of fun. I think that would be cool.
Nice. Now, Phil, first of all, I want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was so happy to be able to order a book that you worked on. So can't wait to get it. Patrick, you're now on the map for me. Not that means anything. But
you're in trouble now, man. You've been marked.
Through Phil, I've discovered your universe, so I plan on definitely delving into it a bit more, especially after speaking to you and seeing how passionate you are about things.
Thank you.
But guys, I just want to say thank you for coming on, and I want to say to everyone that's out there, whoever's catching this on the rewind, the link to Legacy Comics and specifically to Condrey, A Prayer for the Dying, is in the description below. So you can follow the link through this video. Just go in the description. It's provided there. It was posted in the chat by Digger Jim, so you can also get it there. But go support indie comics. This isn't a Kickstarter. They're not charging you $20 for a book. It's $5 for the book. Don't let the $8 shipping scare you. If you buy a book off eBay, it's going to cost you $8 shipping. $8 is standard shipping. It is
and
what it is.
And you're going to get it signed. We'll sign it for you for free. So
really,
you're going to get a signed book for $13. I mean,
yeah, but let's talk this through. That. Really, you should buy 2. That breaks the cost effect into it's that cost breakdown of now shipping is only $4 if you think about it because I'm putting 2 books in there.
And
some books. I don't know. It's weird math.
No, I think it works.
I think it works.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, and we also got we also got a few new sales for you tonight. Hopefully, it's going to create more sales as this video gets out and people catch it on the rewind. Thursday nights are generally a pretty busy night. We'll get a lot of rewatches after this. But everyone out there, feel free to share this out. And but first of all, I always want to thank, first and foremost, my my co-host Digger Jim. Thanks, Jim, for being here every Thursday for me.
Yeah, this was eye-opening.
I want to thank Phil for coming back and being on the channel, my little dinky channel, once again. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And of course, Patrick, it was exceptional of you to come on and spend some time with us. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
Gary, wait, can I add one more thing to cut you off before?
Of course you can.
I know there's
about you guys tonight, not me.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people here tonight who are watching or what you're watching the replay who have YouTube channels. Patrick is an excellent guest. He's one of those people. He's not just there to sell you stuff. He's gonna share his passion with you. He's not doing the rounds. He's not going to give every single answer the same as he's done in every channel. He's one of those guys you can actually just have on and talk and go. Book him today.
Now, you know what I haven't had, as Phil, I like to fool around with my 10-1-1 format. I've done album versions of the 10-1-1. I've done horror. I've done movie. I've done board games where we sell like a 1906 board game and other things.
Laserdisc.
Laserdisc. I've done a Laserdisc version, maybe, and maybe we can get Joe's alter ego Bruno to put a little leverage on him. But maybe at some point we could talk Pat into coming on and doing a video game 1011.
Oh,
That'd be
love to.
awesome.
But
yeah.
because once you're on the channel, you're part of the family, Pat. So you kind of stuck with us for a while.
I'd love to. Absolutely.
Hey, Roscoe, great to see you, sir.
Roscoe.
Another great artist in the community. Now, guys, thank you very much. Thank you to the audience that came out here. And I just appreciate the time you guys spent. Again, guys, go support them. $4.99 for a comic is just standard shelf price. So they're not breaking the bank. You're going to get introduced to, if you like indie comics and you like being introduced to new concepts and new worlds, go check these guys out and what they're doing. And go check out Patrick's Legacy Comics, not just the comic that Phil did, but his whole bibliography of books over there. Check them out. And thank you guys. And you know how we like to end this thing. We're not going to promote ourselves tonight because it's about them. So we'll keep what we're doing for another time. As I like to end these things, we will say, keep it casual.